here. So obviously our purpose today is to launch the agreement, formally the agreement between ourselves at the DPC and the University of Melbourne, and it's a great opportunity to welcome again colleagues from the University of Melbourne and thank them for their support. Why are we here? Why are we here as a group? Let me answer that question first. Why am I here? It's a question I ask a lot. Why am I here? Well, there are two reasons, I guess, to be here. One of them is about collegiality. Sometimes that's solidarity. So my purpose is to represent a global community who are interested and want to support you in your efforts. And I have the unusual and unlikely prerogative to represent those 150 different agencies, to encourage you in your work and your endeavours, and to tell you how much that work and those endeavours are valued. And that's not a message that we often hear, I think, sometimes from our more senior management. So it's an important message to take home. Digital preservation sometimes feels too much like an insurgency. So I'm here to raise the mob that we need to do to get our work done and appreciated. Secondly, it's about learning, and it's about adaptation and flexibility. Because it's not good for me to come here and say how digital preservation should be. The expertise and the knowledge and the wherewithal to achieve these goals are in this room. So my job is to build a network and build a coalition which will learn from the capability which is here, and through that network and through the network effect, get continually better and continually smarter and learn from the shared experiences that we have. And that's why I've come to be with you today. We're here for the purpose, of course, of digital preservation, the series of managed activities necessary to ensure continued access to digital materials for as long as necessary. A very big, a very broad, a very meaningful challenge with a lot of meaty different pieces within there, which is going to require organisational change, is going to require all sorts of resources and wisdom and knowledge and policy and support to achieve it. What's at stake if we don't do this right? Well, a great deal is at stake if we don't do this right. From structured to unstructured data, from digitised and born digital material. In effect, any digital object which relates to a product or a service, and the product of service has a longer life cycle than the infrastructure upon which that product was built, is in scope for digital preservation. And as a consequence, we build a network much larger and much more impactful than if it was only within the context of memory institutions. What we need to achieve that is a community scaled to the global challenge. Why do we do this? Why do we want to do digital preservation? Well, let's run through some of the thoughts around digital preservation. I'm going to start in a different place from normal. Why have we engaged with digital at all? We engage with digital materials because digital objects, documents, databases, whatever it might be, they have value. They help us do things in the real world. They create opportunities. That's why we've engaged with digital materials. But those digital materials require access, and access depends on software and hardware and people, and software and hardware and people have a habit of changing. And therefore, there are constantly emerging barriers to use and constantly emerging barriers to opportunity. So we don't do digital preservation for the sake of the bits and the bytes. The files won't thank us. It's not just about obsolescence or about bits, and it's certainly much more than just backup. We don't do it for the files or the format. So even though that might be the subject of much of our discussion, fundamentally, it's about people and it's about opportunity. And if you want to know where to start in digital preservation, start with the people. The rest will fall into place. Digital preservation is fundamentally about healthier, wealthier, safer, smarter, more creative, more transparent communities, organisations and institutions. That's the goal. And as the slide says, as the banner above the State Library says as I came down the road this evening, the rest is up to us. How do we achieve that goal? And what role for the DPC in that? Well, we are, as you've seen, a global community working together to bring about a sustainable future for those digital resources. And we do those 5 things: community advocacy, workforce development, good practice and good governance. And we want you to take a hand in all of those. It's not a transactional relationship. I'm not coming to you as a consultant. You own the DPC. You direct the DPC. You point us to the things that you need us to pay attention to. And so that's the network. And you look at the network and you think that some of the institutions you would expect, University of Melbourne gets prime billing in this slide. It's the big network that you'd expect. But look closer, you'll find some unexpected partners in there. And I'm fond, someone will by now already have spotted that Bacardi is a member of the DPC. That's not any other Bacardi than the one you're thinking of. That's because if you want to sell whiskey in the People's Republic of China and you want to tell the world or tell the customs official that the whiskey you're selling is a 40-year-old bottle of Scotch, you don't want to have to tell the customs official at the point you're going to import it into your largest marketplace by hacking around in some legacy stock management system. You have to manage that data through the life cycle of the product. And that life cycle of the product is way longer than the infrastructure it was built upon. We've done an awful lot of work in recent years also in the nuclear industry, with nuclear decommissioning, where the life cycle of records is in tens of thousands of years. Life cycle of records, which is longer than the history of writing. So there's a huge challenge out there, which is about more than the standard memory institutions, and we can engage all of them. So that's my purpose. That's what we seek to achieve. A community scaled to the global challenge. And in order to talk a little more about that, it's my pleasure now to introduce Donna from the University of Melbourne, who's going to say a few words about the role and the work at the University of Melbourne.
Thank you very much, William. Always a hard act to follow. Okay. Oh, how do I go back? No, I'm going forward. All right.
The red button goes back.
It does it? Okay. Thank you. There we go. Now you've had a preview. Okay, so firstly, my name's Donna McCrosty and I'm from the University of Melbourne, and my role is Deputy Director of Research and Collections Stewardship, and as part of the executive team supporting the University Librarian, Gwenda Thomas, who's here with us this evening as well. And I thank her for all her support and commitment to this initiative as well. So firstly, I want to also pay my respects to the Wurundjeri of the Kulin Nation and to the elders past, present and emerging. It's so wonderful to be here in person, and I echo those sentiments from William, and to relaunch and revisit that memory of that pivot to Zoom 3 years ago, which was done incredibly quickly, and it was just as much fun. So let's recreate that as well. So our digital preservation journey at University of Melbourne has been a long and winding road to gain institutional commitment and visibility of the challenges, and we're still on that journey. So everybody who's still on that road, it is a long road, and we continue to work on that. As early as 2006, discussion papers were developed to highlight the need to consider the impact of the digital deluge and its ongoing integrity as a record of the time. We gathered more momentum in 2011 after a workshop with the esteemed Nancy McGovern and Seamus Ross, two preservation pioneers and experts globally, which consolidated our approach and led to the development of an endorsement of an enterprise strategy. We wanted something that was an enterprise positioning of digital preservation, not just a library focus. And it was a very ambitious strategy, and a 10-year strategy at that. Much has changed in 10 years. And through this journey, we reached out to DPC, first as join as an associate member, then progressively we increased that commitment to a full-time member. At the time, nationally, there was distributed pockets of expertise, but it was fragmented, and skills in this space were hard to come by and highly sought after as well. So the support provided by DPC assisted us to better understand how to make this strategy real, so it's not just one of those documents that sit on a shelf and gather dust. So from afar, we could tap into a community of experts, professional connections, advocacy, engagement tools, services and skill building, which was the critical underpinning of our success. So fast forwarding to today, it feels like a vibrant and connected community that generously shares successes and challenges as part of a global conversation. DPC has played a large part in building capability, capacity and a connected community around the digital preservation community nationally. So more about our partnership with DPC. So to achieve its global strategic goals, the DPC identified Australasia as a vibrant region of global digital preservation community, particularly recognised by the active digital preservation community of practice, Australasia Preserves, and that will be a common term to many of you, and I know you've all engaged in many of those conversations. This community was founded in early 2018 through the University of Melbourne's Digital Preservation Strategy goals to foster broader connections and others working in digital preservation in the region. And a big shout out to Jay Weatherburn, who had the foresight to develop this and foster it to a really useful collaboration and connection point. So thank you, Jay, who's with us today, and has played a large part of this journey with the University of Melbourne. And there she is, signing our official Memorandum of Understanding. So in January 2020, the DPC and the University of Melbourne embarked on what was initially a 2-year exploratory project, a partnership to establish and explore to develop a sustainable operations of DPC for the Australasian region. So this 2-year initiative increased the delivery of the DPC program in the region, including events, webinars and access to training and education delivered in the time zone, delivered through many and varied challenges that arose from the global pandemic from 2020 to 2021. At the conclusion of this 2 years, at the end of 2021, the membership in the region had grown from 3 to 15 organisations, and a co-developed organisational development plan for a sustainable operations for the DPC in the Australasian region had been developed, again led by Jay, and contributed to many of the members' voices as part of that development too. This growth and future plan provided the ability to recruit a full-time head of the Australasia and Asia Pacific region, Robin, who you heard from earlier, and to continue the program and goals into 2022 and 23, a role dedicated to expanding the membership benefits and further growing capability and capacity for digital preservation work in the Australasian region. So, as I mentioned earlier, the University of Melbourne has invested in digital preservation for many, many years. Including many years of planning, strategy, development, advocacy work through to tangible implementation of the human and technological infrastructure that is required to support long-term digital preservation. A key driver for progress has been the university's 10-year strategy, which has guided implementation of the work in 4 key areas since 2016. The strategy sets the foundation for enabling greater connection both internally at the university and externally to connect and build communities of practice and partnerships to support long-term digital preservation. The university's digital preservation strategies, culture, infrastructure, policy and organisational goals clearly define the commitment required for long-term digital preservation and highlight the essential support that communities and partnerships continue to bring to this ongoing work, and it very much speaks to that people piece that William emphasised earlier. It's absolutely critical. The university's digital, So the university's digital preservation strategy has driven national and international partnerships and community building in the Australasian region, particularly through its vision for a robust cultural change to support long-term preservation work. The DPC partnership and community building focus has enabled connections to be made and maintained with other organisations on similar journeys, greatly enhancing capability, capacity across the region through knowledge sharing and good practice exchange. Partnerships and community building have also enabled the university's digital preservation program to make excellent progress in its infrastructure, policy and organisational change strategy goals over the 7 years, including establishing robust and ongoing relationships across business teams in the university, implementing an enterprise-wide technology platform, developing policies and procedures for consistent digital preservation implementation, and developing a digital archiving and preservation service. So there are now 17 Australasian-based DPC members working together to learn, to grow and to enhance digital preservation capacity in our region. The university's partnership with the DPC has enabled the development of one emerging approach for setting up a DPC regional presence, an approach which could be potentially used in other regions to help scale all of our communities to the global challenge of digital preservation. So thank you.